from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Sorry about that. The mic was off. Hi there. Good evening. And what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez. Valdez with an S. At Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program. 833-482-5337 is our phone number if you want to join our late night national town hall conversation. 833-4-VALDEZ. And several items I want to get into tonight. And I'm going to get into all of them. Trust me, there's plenty to talk about, and we're going to talk about it all. However, there was an attack in the Bronx that you've probably seen by now. And honestly, I saw it a few days ago. It happened on May 1st, and it was released to the media, I think, probably about 3 days ago. And I was thinking to myself, you know, I don't know what to say about this. It's bad. It's horrible. I really didn't want to talk about it. It just, sometimes these things, you look at them and they're so savage. And this is one of those. This man is walking behind a woman. He had made some conversation with her, apparently, according to reports, walks behind her, takes off his belt, uses it like a lasso, lassos it over her head, pulls it tight, and drags her in between. It renders her unconscious. It drags her in between two cars. And then he rapes her. Then he robs her. And this, shocking, right? I mean, to watch this, it was like the proverbial story of a car wreck, right? The car wreck that you sit there and you say, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Why am I watching this? I shouldn't look at it, but I'm looking at it anyway. This is that situation. I've watched this video not because it gave me enjoyment, not because of anything other than I was shocked. I was hoping that, it wasn't real. It's real. It's a real, brutal attack. And this woman's my age that gets attacked. And there's new developments. They put this video out for the public to see. And as the public has seen it, people have started chiming in with tips and whatnot. And I believe the assailant has finally been identified. And the woman has also come forward and discussed the attack in the New York Daily News. And again, as you could hear, I'm stammering. I don't know what to say. But I knew I had to talk about this. I had to bring it up because it was just so shocking. To me, it's not that a rape occurred. It's not that a violent attack occurred, because it's true that does happen pretty often. And while those things are not good, it's not like they've never happened before. But it's not every day you see it on video like this. And I have to say, just incredibly eye-opening. And my first thought was, everybody needs to go out and buy a gun. Buy two. Because, goodness, nobody's safe in a situation like that, right? Nobody's safe. This woman had no clue what was coming and seconds to react without any prior training, even with a gun. Who knows? I mean, if she had one in her pocketbook, maybe she could have grabbed it and pointed it up towards him, who pulling the belt on her neck, and maybe she could have gotten away. But even that's doubtful. I mean, this guy did this with the skill of an expert. And I guess that's really what I took away from watching this, is that clearly this wasn't this guy's first time. Not at all, right? This could not be his first time. And the whole thing is just, I mean, honestly, just shocking. If you haven't seen it, I'm not that I want you to watch it. I want you to just be aware of what's going on because it's so brutal. But it's ultimately underscoring the problem that we have. Not just the depravity of society, because I think that's true, but more the brazenness of such an attack, that somebody would have the gall to pull this off. And I'm looking at a report earlier today, WPIX 11 News, New York. This man has been identified but remains on the loose. And again, what's alleged is that he choked a woman with a belt, then raped her in between two cars last week on a Bronx street. His name, Kashan Parks, 39 years old. He has 5 prior arrests. He's the suspect sought in the connection of the May 1st attack near 152nd Street, according to the New York City Police Department. The 45-year-old woman was walking down the street when the suspect came from behind and looped the belt around her neck, as we saw in the video. The man covered his face with a towel, then used the belt to pull the woman. But it wasn't just to pull the woman, because, again, watching the video, I can tell you this. He grabs this woman by the neck like a lasso, and he starts dragging her immediately. Now, I've read some reports that say that when she hit the floor, she hit her head, and that's why she passed out, but that's not true. You could see that when she hits the floor, she hits her back, not her head, because he's holding her head up with this belt. And what, in effect, happens is she passes out from the belt on her neck. And you could see it as she's trying to grab this belt on her neck, and her arms go limp, and she passes out. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. And again, this guy does this like he's done this 100 times. I'm glad that they've identified this guy. And the fact that he has all these prior arrests doesn't surprise me. But it really makes us think, who among us, and if there's anybody that's listening to this, I'd love it if you'd call. I would love to speak with somebody that thought that this idea that we should not use cash bail as a deterrent, that we should say, no, that's wrong, because if you're a white guy and you get arrested, you can bail yourself out. But if you're an ethnic minority, you can't bail yourself out immediately because maybe you don't have all that money, so we're going to eliminate cash bail for most crimes. This is one of the worst things that's ever happened to the state of New York and the city of New York. Hands down, I think it has fueled a crime wave of people that have come not only from New York, but from all over the world to come commit crime in New York because they know they can get away with it. It's an absolute disgrace. It really, really is. Anyway, thanks for listening to me lament over this attack. I'm glad this woman's alive and that she's well, and that, again, as well as one could be after suffering a brutal rape like that. I hope they find this guy. I hope his life is short, and I hope he suffers 10 times more than any one of his victims. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez. And I wanted to, again, just take a couple of minutes to just talk about this, because we don't have all the details of who this guy is. And again, his name, Kashan Parks. I don't know the story behind Kashan Parks, but I do know this man is, I don't know if we could say, can we call him a douche on the radio, a douchebag? This guy's horrible. As all people are who commit rape. in my opinion. Rape of any age. Rape of children, even worse. And we should, this is probably a good conversation for open phones a little bit later, but I've always been curious if people share my thoughts, that I feel like this is one of those crimes that's a tad more egregious than others. Why? Well, I'll explain. I think it strikes a certain fear in society, especially amongst women, that feel like they can't walk around safely, and they're not in fear of their lives, mind you, right? They're not afraid to get killed, because I think there's a degree of that all women deal with, and all people deal with. And they're like, well, I can get hit by lightning, I can get hit by whatever. But it's more so, no, I can get forcibly raped and attacked and live and survive and have to deal with the rest of that. And I think that brings a different type of fear. And I only know about that because when I was in the 5th grade, I used to go to public school 197, PS 197, right off of Kings Highway in Brooklyn, New York. And I remember there was a girl in our class that was out for an extended period of time, and nobody knew why she was out. And then it became known that a recent rape of a young girl was of her. And I remember feeling mortified. In particular, because I was not, I was not her friend per se. I didn't, have a relationship with her. And, occasionally I would tease her and stuff because I was a stupid little kid. And I remember feeling bad about everything. And I was just like, oh my God, that poor girl. She went through all these horrible things. And similar situation to this. There was a composite sketch that went around and all these reports on the television. And it was just like brutal to endure. And again, nothing happened to me, but I just felt badly for her. And I remember all the other girls in the class were like, oh my God. And, and honestly, in 5th grade, you know what rape is by definition, but you don't know like the severity of it. But I began to learn, in my neighbors and everywhere I went to the store with my parents, anything like that, people were talking about this. And this mugshot or this composite sketch was taped to telephone poles. And this girl lived down like 2 blocks from me. And everywhere you went, you would see this man's face. And it was just like, I was scared. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's, the big bad wolf in many ways. And I thought, I'm not even a target of his. But yet, here we are, feeling like I could be. And I just remember that feeling and thinking, I knew I wasn't going to get hurt by this guy. But just imagine, everybody has a sister, everybody has a mother, everybody has an aunt. Everybody has somebody in their family that potentially can get hurt. And this just highlights to me everything that's wrong in society. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, doesn't really matter per se to me, honestly. Just means maybe you're complimentary to me when you call in, and maybe you're belligerent, right? But ultimately, we all have to live our lives, right? We all pay the piper. We all have to submit to the higher authority, right? To God, one day we must appear to our judge. And we got to do things the right way. Everybody makes mistakes. But this is not a mistake that's, outside of God's forgiveness either, right? I understand that, even though it's a tough concept to swallow sometimes. But I also realize that with these actions come a lot of harm. And in a situation like the one we have in our country, where we have a border that's wide open, and you have women becoming the targets of people that are used to getting their way, especially if they're doing it abroad. Now, I don't know this man. Apparently he's been arrested 5 times, so he's probably a homegrown criminal of ours. But I don't know. We may find out later that he's not. But that doesn't stop the news from coming in. Look at this story. Lake Worth Beach, man accused of sexually assaulting 11-year-old girl. This is a brutal story. Arrested Saturday, charged with the sexual assault of an 11-year-old. This guy's 20 years old, Marvin Perez Lopez. He held an 11-year-old girl against her will. That sounds like kidnapping to me. Sexually assaulted her, according to the county sheriff, Rick Bradshaw. He says that's a capital crime. Good for him. Good for the sheriff for pointing that out. And hopefully they'll be able to do something about that. I think examples need to be made. And I don't mean to sound like a crazy. And if I sound like a crazy, that's fine. I'll take the criticism. But I think we've gotten too far away from right and wrong, where some people think that it's okay. It's not okay to act on your impulses this way. It's not okay to do anything like this. Women need to be safe as they walk down these streets. And more crimes like this that occur allow that to happen fewer and fewer times. And that to me that should transcend every political line, right? Whether Joe Biden is a traitor to our allies in the Middle East, like Israel, and he is, shouldn't impact how any one of us sees these things. But yet there's among us people that believe that it's somehow racist or oppressive to have cash bail in a state like New York. And I just want to be the first one to tell you, if not the first, the last, the middle, whichever. I'll take whatever number you give me. You're dead wrong. We can't live in a society where people are allowed to commit crime seemingly with impunity, and because they may not afford bail. So you can't afford bail means we won't charge you bail, and that means you get to jump bail, skip bail, and you do it again. I don't think that my logic is that far off. If you disagree, feel free, give a call. I don't mind that. But I absolutely won't accept this. I personally won't accept it. We can't come together as a country where we have the Laken Riley attack that I recently learned was, again, a foiled rape. Like, he killed her. That's why he didn't rape her. Because I guess she fought back. And countless others, including this one that with the belt, which is just really the I don't know. I don't want to say the worst among them, but the one that I actually saw, right? I think it's jarring to watch is all I could say. I mean, it was so bad I can't find words. We're talking about me here. I always have something to say. At some point, Americans have to come together and rally around something. And if it's not politics or party or the Constitution or anything else that we can agree or disagree on, it should be this. This should be something, like I said, that transcends every party line, that every single human in America agrees can't happen again, and that we hold some people accountable, including the politicians who allow people that have been arrested 5 times to be on the street because they don't charge them bail. I say lock them up and throw away the key. Anyway, folks, we're coming right back. We're going to continue with our discussion, plus your calls. 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Common Sense Department is noticing that during campaign stops, former President Trump is asking the old question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And Trump has now gotten a response from President Biden, who says, quote, well, Donald, I'm glad you asked that question, man, because I hope everyone in the country takes a minute to think back to what it was like in March of 2020. So if you have a minute, Common sense would like to rewind the clock. In March of 2020, AAA says the average price of gas was $1.99 a gallon. Today it's $3.53. Mortgage rates in March 2020 averaged 3.29%. Today it's 7.2%. Food up 25%. Rent 22% up. Credit card debt 47% up. In 4 years, the illegal immigration population has gone up by 8 to 9 million. Homelessness, crime, also up. In fairness, some things are down, like test scores, arrests, and national pride. A Monmouth poll released today says 34% of Americans, 1/3 of the country, would settle in a different country if they were able. The previous high was in 1972, when 13% of Americans said they would leave.
That's Trace Gallagher with the report on Fox News. And that's a few weeks old already. But I thought remarkable the way he kind of captured everything. And he ended on what we were just talking about, right? Arrests are down. That's nothing to brag about. No, I don't think you should brag about arrests being up either, unless crime is visible, right? If crime is visible, then you want to say, yeah, we're locking people up left and right. Just insanity to think of the situation that we find ourselves in. For me, I'm blown away by this stuff. Honestly, I never thought that we'd get to a place like this. I didn't think that America could withstand all of this craziness and somebody not be held accountable. Like it is somewhat surprising to me that Joe Biden's never been held to account, that there really hasn't been a legitimate impeachment effort against him, that we've been subjected, I need to say it right, to his wrath, right? And we just continue, right? It just goes on and on and on. Really quite amazing. Anyway, we will continue. Now, speaking of the border that we were just talking about, some Border Patrol agents have had enough, and they're speaking out. Now, they can only speak on condition of anonymity, so they blur their face and they change their voice. But you have to hear what one Border Patrol agent said on News Nation yesterday. Listen to this. Number 15.
The biggest thing is that we do not control the border. The cartel controls the border. Everything that we do is a reaction to things that they have planned. Usually we're chasing around pawns while the kings and queens are doing whatever they want.
The kings and queens are doing whatever they want. I got to tell you, this is, again, not, I'm going to say disappointing, but not surprising, but eye-opening that this is happening. And here we are. Here we are with a border that's wide open and Joe Biden's cogiendo fresco, right? Shooting the breeze, taking it easy. Not good, no bueno. Meanwhile, California, not only do they have this migrant crisis as well, but they also have a Gavin Newsom crisis. Now, he's under fire today because his homelessness council is unable to account for $20 billion in spending, or more than $20 billion. And I was looking at this headline before, and I thought, I was with a friend of mine, and I showed him, and I was like, what do you think about this? And he tells me, he's like, how do you lose $20 billion? I remember when the big scandal was the mayor of the city of New York, who couldn't find $1 billion for something called the Thrive Fund. It was Bill de Blasio's wife at the time who was in charge of that program, and everybody said, where'd that $1 billion go? Her name, Charlene McRae. And it was a huge scandal. Now, Newsom's there with his homeless council, and they're missing 20 plus billion with a B dollars. The Border Patrol says, we don't know what's going on. I mean, to me, it seems like this is pretty clear. The politicians, or like the Border Patrol guy said, the kings and queens are doing what they want. They're doing what they want. They are taking the tax dollars, your money, my money. They do what they want with it. They are officially complicit when he said, we don't control the border, the cartel controls the border. If we take this on its face, then the reality is that Joe Biden does not have any control of the border. The cartels are completely in control of the border. They just keep bringing people in. He's under threat of the cartel to do what he's told, to continue their operation. And when they get here and they run out of money, they become homeless. And Gavin Newsom says, well, I've got $20 billion for you, but I really don't. And I'm going to make that money go away. At some point, and I hope really soon, like this November, Americans need a new sheriff to be elected, right? We need a new sheriff in town to clean things up, to literally drain the swamp, to start stemming the tide of what's going on. Doesn't mean everything will go away, but it means, shoot, can we continue to be this brazen, this flippant? I can't imagine how we withstand, how society withstands any more of this brazen abuse of power by so many Democrats in office. And again, there's some Republicans too, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, it's usually Democrats that are the usual suspects and stuff like this. And it seems like this is lost on a lot of people, right? It falls on deaf ears. Instead, the focus is on Trump. Get Trump, get Trump, get Trump. Well, Trump was outside the New York City courtroom, and while they were getting Trump, he had a lot to say. We're going to get to that straight ahead, plus your calls a little bit later. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Right here, Biden made a claim that inflation under Trump was 9%. When it wasn't, it was a tiny fraction, it was 1.4%, and actually going down. We had essentially almost no inflation, but we had 9% inflation, and that's a fake number because not everything was included with Biden. And if you add it all up, I think it's a 50% inflation tax. I call it the Biden inflation tax. So he lies, and he lies about everything, including his golf game, because he can't hit a ball. He can't hit a ball 100 yards. Lies about everything, but he came out, and I saw that this last couple of days, he was talking about the Trump inflation was 9%. No, his inflation was 9%. That's a tax on the American people due to gross incompetence. And it was all started because of his energy policies, his stupid Green New Deal energy policies. And you wait till you see. If we don't win this nation is finished. You wait till you see what would happen, because all of that stuff will be closed up. He let a lot of my energy policies go through because energy was starting under his, what they were doing, starting to go up so high. So he let a lot of them continue, including the drilling, because the prices were going so high for gasoline and energy. And now he comes out and he actually says, I guess with a straight face, but I'm not sure he knows what he's saying anyway, that it was 9% under Trump. So at least the New York Post, and I hear the Wall Street Journal, and a couple of others did correct it.
That That is El Trumpito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, outside the courtroom where he conducts most of his business lately, because they've got him kind of sequestered there because they're keeping him in court instead of on the campaign trail. And God bless him for still figuring out a way to reach the media and get, the word out of what he wants to say. I find it remarkable. If should Trump win, the story is going to be, this is the guy, did most of his campaigning outside of a courtroom. Unbelievable what they're doing to Trump. Anyway, Trump is right that Biden said, look, when I came into office, inflation was 9%. Lies. And I think every big fact checker out there corrected the record on that. We even played one, I think, from ABC News 2 nights ago where they corrected the record and said, no, that wasn't it. And I'm glad they did, so that, I don't have to shout that they're fake news. Thank goodness. But what is up with Joe Biden? Now, I understand there's a lot of rhetoric and people stretch the truth and embellish a lot in politics, but come on. This is just making stuff up. Well, then again, it's Joe Biden, right? That's why he had to end his first campaign for president, because he made stuff up and he got caught. Unbelievable. Anyway, Trump continues outside the courtroom, and he says this gag order is a disgrace. But the bigger part of this, I think, that he brings up is, why didn't they bring this case 7 years ago when it was appropriate to bring the case? Why not at the time that it should have happened? Why wait till right now, once he decided to run for the White House a third time? Listen to this.
There is no gag order to Michael Cohen. What the judge did was amazing, actually. It was amazing. Everybody can say whatever they want. They can say whatever they want, but I'm not allowed to say anything about anybody. It's a disgrace, and you see it. The media sees it. And it's really very sad. If you look at the legal experts and the legal scholars, every one of them say this trial is a scam. It's something that should have never happened. By the way, it could have happened 7 years ago. They bring it right during the election. Nobody sees that. Nobody talks about it. This should have been 7 years ago. It shouldn't have been brought. But if it was going to be brought, it should have been brought 7 years ago. And, we're talking about 2016. We're talking about something that goes back a charge of 2006. Think of it. We're talking about 2016. We're talking about a charge that's 18 or 19 years old. It's all fake. The whole case is fake. The judge is corrupt. And the only thing he gives us is to make him look a little bit good. He gives us nothing. Now, what he just did now is a joke. It's a disgrace.
Tell us how you really feel, El Trumpito. Listen, I agree with President Trump here. I think this whole thing is beyond wrong. And I don't know why. There's still some semblance of hope in me that believes that all the truth comes out and people ultimately go, you know what, we see right through this. I believe in people. I really do. And ultimately, I feel like the American people just aren't rotten and they're not stupid. And they're going to look at this and say, you know what, enough is enough. We've had enough. And I think that's why we see him doing so well in the polls. I think that's why I think if the elections were today, he'd be reelected very handily. But you just can't do this. You really can't do this stuff to people. Now, Trump says the whole thing is fake. Well, Andrew McCabe, remember him? He's one of the lawyers that brought the phony Russian hoax against Trump. Andrew McCabe is on CNN today, and he says that, listen, voters need to listen to actual legitimate news, actual legitimate media. I guess any media he's affiliated with or that he prefers is the legitimate media, and that everything else is Russian propaganda. Listen to this.
There's some kind of decoder ring you can give voters or civilians to wear that will help them look for how or where there might be Russian fingerprints on the election?
In a word, John, it's all about information sources. You've got to constantly be questioning, where are you getting the information you're getting? How good are these sources? Is this something you just picked up off of social media? Can you tie it back to an actual legitimate media entity or information entity? If not, be very curious and suspicious of the things that you hear out there in the social media sector.
Can you take it back to an actual legitimate media entity or information entity? What, like CNN? Now, I got to say, this week CNN's been getting a few things right. But what about the last decade of our lives, right? Their track record isn't that great. I agree that you want to have credible news. And sometimes it's in the form of legitimate media entities or not. But I think what it really comes down to is just legitimate stories, right? Stories that are well written. You know, sometimes I see this stuff on either side, right? There's like a site, I hate to mention it, but beforeitsnews.com, they've got the worst stuff on there. Some things are interesting, but for the most part, it's just like fantasy football for people that like politics, right? It's just crazy stuff that hasn't happened, likely won't ever happen. But on that website, it happened already, and they're celebrating it. Crazy, right? But you can tell in the way that it's shoddily written, it's just not the real deal. I think that's what you got to look out for. You just have to have consumed enough information to realize, all right, this is some shoddy propaganda, and this is seemingly something I can consider. And you have to look at it that way. Otherwise, you get got. And nobody wants to get got around here, right? Nobody wants to be had. Anyway, folks, stick with me. I'm Rich Valdez. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with your calls. Let's go to Amy, Hudson, Ohio, WNIR. Go right ahead. Welcome.
Hello. Am I on?
Good evening. You're on the air with all of America.
Very good. Thank you. I'm glad you're there. Spreading factual information and some common sense, what you're doing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I would like to, you're welcome. I would like to address the rape issue. I strongly, very strongly feel that anyone who rapes a child, a woman, a man, whomever, should be castrated.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you. Matter of fact, I'd probably go a step further, and I would say if you rape children, you probably should have like an automatic death sentence, and if there's like some other type of mild sexual assault, you should have castration. But I think rape is an incredibly pervasive and invasive and just brutal type of attack that I think a lot of people would wish they died. And that type of thing is just brutal, Amy. But I'm with you. I support it 100%. If you get it going, we'll movement for that. We'll support it on the air.
Well, this is the first time I've ever expressed this publicly. So, but thank you for agreeing, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for listening. I appreciate you tuning into the show each evening. It means the world to me. Thank you, Amy in Hudson, Ohio, listening on WNIR. The music means that I have to go. We're coming back, though. We'll be getting to your calls again in a little bit. You know the number, 833-482-5337. Until then, I am Rich Valdez. Make sure you check us out at richvaldez.com. You could check out all of our episodes there on the archive. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 is coming up. It's Friday. I'm letting my hair down. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of the program. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, feel free to give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez, and happy Friday to you. And the debate over diversity, equity, and inclusion continues to rage on, and whatever side of that argument you're on, there's no shortage of opinions on it. But there's a story from a few years back that I remember seeing on television, and this was a pretty remarkable story. It's about the musician Daryl Davis, who'd gotten involved with someone from the Klan. They'd become, I'm going to say first like adversaries, but then friends, like having these intense discussions. And it's this remarkable story. And he ended up writing a book about it called Clandestine Relationships, with the play on words being Klan, K-L-A-N, Clandestine Relationships. The book was published back in 97, and there's been a number of television reports about it. And I remember seeing it and thought, wow, this is quite a story. And when I learned I'd have the opportunity to interview Daryl Davis, I said, get out of here. I'd love to. You know, where there's a will, there's a way, right? When you really get to the crux of a matter, you can really get to the heart of who people really are. And I can't wait to have this conversation with him. We're going to talk about this recently released discrimination report card and overall the story in the book of how he got a Klansman to give up his white robe. And I think that's a remarkable story. Daryl Davis, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rich, for having me. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. Likewise, my pleasure to speak with you. And I'm sure you've told this story 1,000 times, but it's one that I think is worthy of repetition. Take us from the beginning, right? You're a musician. You're just doing your thing. How do you stumble upon this opportunity to either debate or befriend someone from the Klan?
Okay. Well, we have to go way back to the beginning before I was a musician. I'm the child of parents in the U.S. Foreign Service, U.S. State Department. So I grew up as an American embassy kid. I began traveling around the world at the age of 3 in 1961. I was born in 58, so I'm 66 today. But my first exposure to school was overseas. And how it works is, you get assigned to a country for 2 years. At the end of that assignment, you come back home here to the States. You're here for maybe a year. And then you get reassigned to another country abroad for 2 years. So back and forth were my formative years. And I did kindergarten, first grade, third grade, fifth grade, seventh grade, all in different countries. Now, my classmates, this is like, the early 60s, right? My classmates were from all over the world. Anybody who had an embassy where we were assigned, all of their kids went to the same school. So my classmates were from Czechoslovakia, Japan, Nigeria, Rome, Italy, France, Germany, you name it. And that became my baseline for what school was supposed to be. We all didn't look alike. We all didn't speak necessarily the same languages, but we all worked together, played together, had slumber parties together. Never any problems. But every time I'd come back home after my parents' assignment, I would either be in all black schools or black and white schools, meaning the still segregated or the newly integrated. And just because desegregation was passed by the Supreme Court in 1954, 4 years before I was born, doesn't mean that schools integrated overnight. It took years. And in fact, we are in 2024, and in some parts of this country, we're still dealing with trying to get schools integrated. So anyway, I came back home one time in 1968 at the age of 10 in fourth grade, and I was one of 2 black children in the entire school, myself in fourth grade and a little girl in second grade. So consequently, all of my friends were fourth and fifth graders, and they all were white. several of my male friends had joined the Cub Scouts, and they invited me to join, 1968. I joined the Cub Scouts, and I was the only Black Scout anywhere in the area. And we had a parade. We were at the time we were in Massachusetts. We had a parade from Lexington to Concord to commemorate the ride of Paul Revere. And somewhere down, the streets are blocked off, sidewalks are lined on either side with nothing but white people waving and cheering, smiling and yelling the British are coming, that kind of thing. Until we got to a certain point in this parade route when suddenly I'm being pelted by bottles and soda pop cans and small debris from the street by a small group of spectators off to my right. Now, having never had any kind of precedent for this kind of behavior, my first thought was, oh, those people over here to my right, they don't like the Scouts. That's how naive I was. It wasn't until my troop leaders, my scout leaders came running over, and they all were white, and huddled over me with their own bodies and quickly escorted me out of the danger. And now I'm trying to, I'm realizing that no other Scout is getting this special protection. So what did I do? How did I cause this to happen? And I kept asking them, and all they would do is shush me and rush me along, tell me to keep moving, everything's going to be okay. So they never answered my question. At the end of the parade, I went home, and my mom and dad, who were not present at the march, saw me and were cleaning me up, putting Band-Aids on me and asking me, how did you fall down and get all scraped up? And I told them, I didn't fall down. I told them exactly what had happened. And for the first time in my life, my mom and dad sat me down at the age of 10 and explained to me what racism was. Now, Rich, believe it or not, at the age of 10, I had never heard the word racism. I had no clue what they were talking about because that word and that behavior, if you will, was not in my sphere. That's why it's important to understand my background. I was around people from all over the world, and we all got along. This racism thing did not exist. And I literally did not believe my parents because my 10-year-old brain could not process the idea that someone who had never seen me, never spoken to me, knew nothing about me, would want to hurt me for no other reason than the color of my skin. That didn't make sense. And to prove to my parents my point that I'm right is the fact that my fellow Scouts, my schoolmates here in this country, and my little friends overseas, whether they were from Sweden or Denmark or England or wherever, they didn't, they looked the same as those people on the sidewalk throwing things at me. So it had nothing to do with skin color, Right. And again, this is 1968, a very turbulent year in our history. And I quickly learned that, yes, this phenomenon called racism does exist. And of course, it culminated with the assassination of Dr. King. And I remember that very well. The cities burned to the ground and all that. I saw the rioting, as a 10-year-old kid. So now I accept my parents telling me this racism thing does exist. But what I did not understand was why. And I formed a question in my mind at that age, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And so now I've been looking for the answer to that question now for 56 years, because I'm 66 now, and that happened back when I was 10. So now, fast forward, I graduated high school, went to college, got my degree in music. Music became my profession, but studying race relations became my obsession. And I bought tons of books on black supremacy, white supremacy, the Ku Klux Klan, the Nazis in Germany, the neo-Nazis over here, racism, anti-Semitism, got a vast library on it. But none of my books answered the question as to why. They talked about it, but it didn't give me satisfaction as to why this happens. And when I would ask people, they say, oh, Daryl, some people just like that. That's just the way it is. Well, that's not an answer for me. So country, I graduated with my degree, started playing professionally, and country music made a resurgence. It's never gone away, but it kind of fell off the top 40 charts until there was this movie called Urban Cowboy with John Travolta. Big box office hit, lots of country music in the movie. So a lot of bars and clubs where they had live bands switched their format from disco and R&B and top 40 to a country. So, if you want to work full-time in the industry, you play what's popular. So I joined a country band. I was the only black guy in the band. The band was pretty well established. I live here in Maryland. They were established here in the area. And they had played a club in Frederick, Maryland, which is about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C., called the Silver Dollar Lounge. The Silver Dollar Lounge had a reputation for not being welcoming to black people. Now, it didn't have any signs, saying whites only, no blacks allowed, nothing like that. But when you go somewhere where you're not welcome and alcohol is being served, it's not a good combination, right? So here I am in the Silver Dollar Lounge. And after the first set, we took a break, and I'm following the band over to the table when I feel somebody from behind me put their arm across my shoulder. Now, I don't know anybody in here. And I'm turning around to see who's touching me. And it was a white guy, at least a decade and a half older than me. And he has a big smile on his face, and he's saying, how much he enjoyed the music. I thanked him, shook his hand. And then he says, this is the first time I ever heard a black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis. Now, I was not offended, but I was surprised, given the fact that this guy is at least a decade and a half older than me, that he did not know the black origin of Jerry Lee Lewis's piano style. And I proceeded to tell him that it came from the same place I got it from black, blues, and boogie-woogie piano players. Oh, no, I ain't never heard no black man play like that, except for you. So I'm thinking, okay, well, the guy never saw Little Richard or Fats Domino. It's the same boogie style. And I said, look, man, I know Jerry Lee Lewis. And he's told me himself. He's a good friend of mine. Well, the guy didn't believe that either. But he was fascinated with me. I guess I was a novelty. And he wanted me to come back to his table and let him buy me a drink. So I don't drink alcohol, but I went back to his table, let him buy me a cranberry juice. And he pays the waitress, takes his glass, and he clinks my glass and cheers me. And then he makes another announcement. He says, this is the first time I ever sat down with a black man and had a drink. Well, now I'm totally baffled, because this is why it's important to know my background. At this point in time, I had sat down with thousands, even tens of thousands of white people and had a meal, a beverage, a conversation. How is it that this guy, who's at least 15, 20 years older than me, had never sat down with a black guy? So I wasn't being facetious. I was just being totally innocent. I said, why? And he didn't answer me at first. And I asked him again, and his buddy sitting next to him elbowed him and said, tell him.
Well, before you tell us, I want to pause you right there, Daryl Davis, and I want to leave everybody on the hook. Folks, we're on with Daryl Davis. He is the author of Clandestine Relationship, and we're going to continue and hear exactly what it was that this white man that bought him a drink had to say and why he'd never had a drink with a black man before. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
Daryl Davis, a musician. He's played his set at the Silver Dollar in Maryland, and a white man comes over to him and says, hey, I want to buy you a drink. I've never heard anybody play as good as this. He goes there, and he's shocked by it. Let's pick up where we left off. Daryl Davis.
Thank you. Yeah, so I asked him why he had never sat down with a black man before and had a drink after he told me that. And he finally told me, he says, I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And I burst out laughing at him because I know a lot about the Klan, and they don't just come up and put their arm around some black guy's shoulder and want to buy him a drink and hang out. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
So I'm laughing. He goes inside his wallet and hands me his Klan membership card. I stopped laughing. But he was very friendly, and he was very curious about me because he'd never seen this before. And so he gave me his number. I would call him whenever we played there. He'd come back and bring Klansmen and Klanswomen to see, as he put it, the black guy who plays like Jerry Lee Lewis. I'm not sure he called me the black guy to his friends, right? But that's how he explained it to me. And so anyway, we became friends. But I quit that band at the end of the year, and I went back to playing, rock and roll and whatever else was going on. And I forgot about him. And then a few years later, it dawned on me, Daryl, you blew it. You missed your opportunity. The answer to your question that's been plaguing you since the age of 10, how can you hate me if you don't even know me, fell right into your lap. Who better to ask that question of than someone who would go so far as to join an organization that has over 100-year history of practicing hating people who don't look like them or who don't believe as they believe? Get back in contact with that guy. get him to fix you up with the Klan leader from Maryland, interview that guy, go up north, go down south, go to the Midwest, go to the West, and interview other Klan leaders and members and write a book, because no book had been written on the Ku Klux Klan by a black author from the perspective of sitting down face to face and interviewing these people. So that's exactly what I did. And I met the Klan leader of Maryland. We sat down and had a conversation. And over time, he began changing. And then he ended up quitting the Klan and renouncing it and giving me his robe and hood. And I've been doing this now for about 42 years. I have a massive collection of robes and hoods, swastika flags, all kinds of stuff, because I deal with neo-Nazis and other, supremacists. And, I'm a firm believer, Rich, that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. We need to cancel culture. It does no good.
Wow. Amen to that, brother. I believe in that too. I'm all about the argument. I'm all about the debate. I always have dissenting callers on because I think that's how you get somewhere. Even if you end up disagreeing at the end, at least you had the conversation. Sure. I think when I just presume that I don't like you or you don't like me or you start calling me names and whatnot and we don't have the conversation, you're right. It's a complete missed opportunity. Now, this is you're like the only person that does this, right? I've never met another person that converts Klansmen into becoming normal, right? Is there another person?
I never set out to convert them. I just set out to find out why, but I become the impetus for them to convert themselves.
Let me tell you, this is remarkable. It really, really is. I'm so glad I had a chance to speak with you because, like I said, I'd seen this on television and I thought, man, this is remarkable. It really is such a interesting angle on life in general that you get this. What's the number one thing in 30 seconds that we have left that they tell you, like they'd never met a black man and it was just all propaganda, or it was you specifically, or what gets them to renounce?
Well, a Klansman or Klanswoman is not stamped out of a standard cookie cutter. They come from all different walks of life, so the reasons are different. Sometimes it's they were raised that way. Their family was in the Klan. Other times, they were in an area where that was a Klan stronghold, so they had to join to assimilate. Different reasons. But in the end, they say they had no reason to hate me.
Right.
And that's when I get the robe and hood.
That's remarkable. Folks, Daryl Davis, check him out at daryldavis.com. Daryl Davis, you, sir, are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I thank you for staying up late with us. I wish I had another hour to continue the conversation. Thank you, sir.
Well,
Godspeed.
We'll have to do part 2 sometime.
Real soon. Thank you. All right, folks, Rich Valdez coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez, and we continue our conversation. I'm with you live until 1 a.m. Eastern time. We're about halfway through, and we've got lots to go. And on Wednesday, I was scrolling through Instagram, as I normally do. I go through all the social media. And I saw a video that really caught my eye. It was of a young lady who was one of the more vocal protesters at one of the big Occupy events that have occurred on college campuses all across the country. And she was very vocal in her protest, but now it was the next day and the protest was over and they'd cleared it up. And she was a little bit more down to earth and she was very sad. Not about what she'd done, not about what she was defending, but because the school had canceled her graduation. Listen to this.
I mean, I'm a little disappointed. I'm being restricted from a lot of things right now that I didn't expect to be for standing up for something that I believe in. And I have family coming in who I have to let them know to, not come to my graduation ceremonies. I am glad that there is a guarantee that my courses will be taken care of, so I don't have to worry necessarily about my graduation requirements and the fact that I will earn my degree as I have spent the past 4 years doing. But I'm just disappointed. I mean, I'm a 2020 high school grad, so I wasn't able to walk then. And so, here it is. I'm not able to walk now.
All right, there you go. Now, she was not laughing towards the end there. She was crying. And she was crying because she went from chanting from the river to the sea to crying about not being able to graduate because she has family in town. And, obviously, as a dad, I look at this and I'm thinking, I would have been in her face going, you should have thought of that when you were chanting these stupidities. Now you lost your chance to graduate, right? That's likely what I would have said to my own kids. But that's where she is. And hopefully she learned a lesson from it. I don't know that she did learn this lesson, but it opens up our conversation to all of this, right? Just so much of how there is such a movement afoot in our country to delegitimize anything having to do with Israel. For years, there's been the BDS movement, the boycott, divest, and sanction movement to undermine economic growth and trade with Israel. And now there's this new movement where it's, I don't know, I'm going to say it really blurs the line between any critique of Zionism and full-blown anti-Semitism. And that's where we are today. And I just think about a year ago, if you said something that was considered anti-Semitic, you could get canceled, right? A la Kanye West. But today, we've got, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of Kanye Wests running all over the place on every college campus in America, and we can't keep up. So I want to talk about this move to divest from Israel and what that means overall. And I want to have that conversation with our guest, Carl Szabo. He's Vice President General Counsel for NetChoice and Professor of Internet Law at George Mason University's Scalia School of Law. Professor Szabo, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So walk us through this a little bit, because obviously there's been a move to boycott and divest and sanction Israel for quite a while. I'm guessing that's exacerbated now because of all of this pro-Hamas propaganda that we see on college campuses. What's the take from where you're positioned?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, I'm a Jewish father, and I would ask that student, all these students who are protesting, to come and visit my kids as I take them to and from Hebrew school on Sundays, where there are armed security guards like there always are, and armed police officers like there always are, where our temple was recently desecrated, where I have to have conversations with my children about how they actually need to be worried about the type of hate and experience we're seeing on campus. So as a Jewish father, this is terrifying. But simultaneously, as a professor, as a tech advocate, this is terrifying when I look at the future of America that we are leaving for our children. Because rather than teaching science, technology, engineering, and math, our greatest institutions are teaching radicalism, activism, and protesting rather than the fundamentals on which this nation was built and on which we need to build the better future for the country and for our children. So that's where it really starts to cause real problems, not just for me, but for overwhelmingly a majority of Americans. Most Americans don't want to see this activism on campus. Most Americans don't want to see this radicalism on campus. And at the end of the day, most businesses don't want to see this because that's our future workforce.
And it really is disheartening to see that. From my perspective, I see this and I think, oh my goodness, we're headed in a bad direction very quickly if this continues. And all I could think is that this isn't all genuine anti-Semitism. A lot of it is like AstroTurf anti-Semitism, where they don't really care who the bad guy is, as long as there's somebody they can complain about and create a boogeyman. And I think that's true for a lot of these folks, but only time will tell. Now, in all of this protesting that we see going on and these calls to divest from Israel, something that you point out that I'd like you to explain to us a little bit more is this state-of-the-art defense technology and how that comes into play in the midst of all of this.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think too many people have actually forgotten was what happened about 3 or 4 weeks ago when Iran launched over 300 missiles into Israel, or at Israel, I should say. Simultaneously, for the past 10, 15 years, Israel has been facing inbound rockets from Gaza, from Palestine, from Hamas, and these radical activists in the Middle East. And the reason you don't often hear about a lot of this, or people have quickly forgotten the assaults by Iran on Israel, is because the rockets didn't reach their intended target. They were shot down out of the air. And if you take a moment and think about it, that's incredible that that technology exists today. It would be like shooting an incoming bullet with another bullet. And this is something, if you think back to the 1980s, it was the type of thing that President Reagan talked about when we were talking about the Star Wars project, and it was kind of laughed at. Well, now we have that technology today, and this is literally life-saving technology, and it is made possible by American innovation, American technology, and American businesses that are actually powering the back-end systems that make this technology function. So this is truly revolutionary, and what it has done is actually changed the shape of conflict in the Middle East. So following the launching of 300-plus rockets out of Iran, none of which reached their intended destination, what it actually shows is that Iran's entire offensive capability doesn't work anymore. It's 20th century technology in a 21st century world. And that is the type of technology that America is creating, America is generating, and America is providing to our allies around the world. Now, it's not just our allies either. This type of technology is actually on American battle cruisers to prevent ship-to-ship assaults and similar types of activities. But let's jump 5, 10, 15 years down the road. The bad actors, the foreign adversaries, will continue to innovate and develop new technologies. And if all we are bringing out of university are activists with no fundamental understanding of engineering, activists who think that America is fundamentally evil, then we will cease to have such life-saving technology.
And will crumble from within. Professor, stand by. We're going to take a quick pause. Folks, we're coming right back with our guest, Professor Carl Szabo from the Scalia Law School at George Mason University. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Here's another one that just came out, Axios. No friend of mine. They say that Biden's big donors fume over Israel criticism. Biden's donors are the ones that are against Israel. So somehow maybe those people, Jewish people that vote for Democrats or vote for Biden, if they look at what they're doing, the donors to Biden are against Israel. Very much and vehemently against Israel. They hate Israel. And that's why Biden hates Israel, because he goes with his donors. And he always has. So they ought to start thinking about that.
That is former President Trump making the statement that Biden supporters are against Israel outside of the courtroom today. We come back to this conversation with Carl Szabo, professor of law at the Scalia Law School at George Mason University. And Carl Szabo, it does seem, in my opinion, and you tell me where you land on this, that President Biden is speaking out of both sides of his mouth, where he says, you know, our ironclad commitment to Israel remains, but he seems to be funding both sides of the war, and now he's holding up munitions for the IDF. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so this is where it certainly hits me personally. I mean, let's roll back the clock to the Trump administration. You were looking at the first time we've actually ever seen peace in the Middle East. You saw Arab nations who would not even recognize the state of Israel on a map beginning to engage in treaties and agreements with Israel. You saw the movement of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which the U.S. Embassy, that is, which only makes sense. And things were actually progressing in a stabilizing manner in the Middle East. A lot of that was also led by our energy independence here at home. Mm-hmm. Yet all of that has gone 180 in the past couple of years. And it's not only unfortunate that we are seeing that in the geopolitical realm, but also at home, where we are now seeing calls on campuses, as we identified previously, to boycott, divest, sanction. You're seeing protests literally supporting Hamas, and you're seeing protests that are supporting and ignoring the fact that we have American hostages being held today. And it's pretty clear when you look at the data who the good guys are and who the bad guys are here. And one of the things that kind of does give me some hope is that while we are seeing the Biden administration withhold military aid, while we're seeing the Biden administration basically say, Israel, you're on your own, American businesses are stepping up to protect our democratic ally in the Middle East of Israel by providing things like artificial intelligence. And when we think about artificial intelligence, most people think about something like ChatGPT that you've heard about maybe, right, where it can talk back to you. It is way, 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 way more than that. And what we are seeing is artificial intelligence being used to help locate hostages being held by Hamas today. And how does it do that? Well, AI can actually look at tons of pieces of intelligence, tons of pieces of information, satellite data, movements of trucks, dirt that is being moved from one location to another, and help identify the tunnel systems underneath the Gaza streets. And so that is a great use of artificial intelligence that is being used today, developed in part in Israel because they have incredible engineers there, but also being developed by American businesses and being provided to Israel. Businesses like Amazon and Google, American businesses, are actually providing the back-end technology and the AI infrastructure to make these technological innovations possible so that Israel can go and save the hostages and Israel can go and take out the terrorists.
Wow. That's crazy that AI does all of that. Folks, we're on with Carl Szabo. He's the Vice President and General Counsel for NetChoice and Professor of Internet Law at George Mason University's Scalia School of Law. We're coming right back with him to wrap up on this topic and learn more about everything that he's doing. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833 833-4Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, we're back with Carl Szabo, Vice President and General Counsel for NetChoice and Professor of Internet Law at George Mason University's Scalia Law School. And Professor Szabo, in the few minutes that we have remaining, I want to make sure people understand everything that you're trying to communicate tonight, because as we've talked about these, the lack of education that's currently occurring on these campuses, and how that ultimately leads to a detrimental effect for our national defense or Israel's national defense or for any type of real academic progress moving forward, because people aren't putting that effort forward, as well as any other points you want to underscore.
Yeah, thanks. And quite simply, America's future depends on our youth, right? Without youth, you don't really have a future. And that youth needs to have a couple fundamental things. One, America is the greatest nation on the planet, which it is. Two, America is a world leader and needs to be a world leader, and we lead by example. We protect our friends and we destroy our enemies. And three, that is done because we out-compete, we out-develop, and we out-innovate the rest of the world. And that is done because we focus on innovation, development of new technologies, and new advancements. And that needs to be understood because the next generation are the ones to lead the way. And as much as they may want to get into politics and think that that is the alpha and omega of their lives and everything needs to revolve around it, it doesn't. As Bill Belichick said, do your job, and more people need to focus on that. So that's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing at my job at Mason Law. That's what we're doing at my company, NetChoice. You can learn more about what we're doing at NetChoice at netchoice.org, netchoice.org. You can follow me at Carl Szabo, CarlSzabo on X.
Outstanding. Professor Szabo, I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope that you'll come back and talk about internet law with us, because believe it or not, that comes up more often than you think soon enough. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Folks, we're coming right back with your calls and more. It's Open Phone America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be with you this Friday evening. It's hour number 3 of the program. That means it's Open Phone America. That's right, Open Phones Across America is a time-honored tradition here on this program, dating back as long as I've been alive, back to the late Larry King and his successor, the late, great Jim Bohannon. And, of course, you all get to continue that tradition this evening. The phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. And looking forward to chatting with you guys. There's a bunch of things in the news that have been in the news, for a number of days now. I don't think there's any major breaking news other than some of that rape stuff we talked about earlier, which really, again, and the New York rape was not a breaking story, but the other one was a very recent story, I think, as of today, and we'll get a report on that in a little bit. But I want to talk about something that happened in Congress yesterday that I think is noteworthy. And the reason it's noteworthy is because oftentimes people are speculating, myself included, as to why so many illegal immigrants are coming into the country. And everybody has a story. We disrupted their life and messed things up in the Northern Triangle, and we're forcing them to come here because, they need the almighty dollar and they don't have a good economy. That's our fault. Then you have, they're looking for the American dream. Then you have, the globalist crazies like George Soros that are just trying to destabilize America by bringing more and more people in a very, very quick succession to destabilize our border. And honestly, I think there's a truth in all of these. And one of these stories that's out there is what the media will make fun of you for saying, and they'll say, oh, that's that great replacement stuff. It's not so much great replacement as it is when you have people, they make up part of the census. And the census goes into the apportionment, which is the amount of people that make up your congressional district and the amount of money that gets divvied up. And I think that, is key because money is power. And in politics, there's two things that are commodities: money and people. Those are the two things that you have to be able to move in politics to be able to move the needle on that influence of power, right? Either you have more of it or you have less of it. If you're good at moving money and people, you get more power. If you're not, you get less power. That's the bottom line. This is why advocacy organizations that have big memberships make a lot of noise and they do very well. And that's just the nature of how life works. So I look at all that and I think, good on the Republicans in Congress that passed something yesterday in the House called the SAVE Act. And I want you to hear this report that we have on it. Listen to this.
They say it is designed to protect election integrity. It would be in place to amend a federal law to require proof of U.S. citizenship in order to register to vote in federal elections.
The bill would require states to obtain proof of citizenship for voter registration, and it would call for the deportation of illegal aliens who actually registered to vote. And it would also carry a 5-year prison sentence for anyone who willingly registers an illegal alien to vote. I'm sure all of my Democrat friends are going to support this, right? I mean, why wouldn't you support it? I think we'll find out pretty quickly who hates America and who supports America and the Constitution. I, for one, 100% support this.
The U.S. Code, as of right now, would allow illegal aliens to vote in the upcoming presidential election.
Title 18 says, if the alien reasonably believed at the time of voting that he or she was a citizen of the United States, that they are subject to no prosecution. We've seen many, many people coming across the border who are talking about their excitement about voting for Joe Biden and claiming that they are citizens. This is something that I truly believe we could wake up the day after the election and say, what has just happened? And there's no way to undo it at that point. We've got to get ahead of it. We've got to have this debate now.
I mean, so the election already seems rigged.
It does seem like the fix is in. But the American people are the reason for hope.
The American people are the reason for hope. I agree with that statement. And again, that's a little montage of various clips put together. But you get the idea. New bill passed by the Republicans requiring proof of citizenship when registering to vote. I love this. I love it. I think it's great. It makes people, again, does it solve every problem? No. It doesn't fix inflation. It doesn't close the border. It doesn't release the hostages in Gaza. It doesn't stop Putin from trying to take over with Ukraine. No, it doesn't do any of those things. It does exactly this one thing, and I'm glad it did it. Now, will it get past the Senate? I don't know. You know, we've got some patriots there like Ted Cruz and others, but at the same time, there's some other crazies there that probably won't be as enthused to pass such a bill. Because you got a lot of those McConnell types, Mitch McConnell, turtle types, you get those. My point is, I'm glad they're taking these steps to do this. I think that's the only way you do things in Washington is if you do them. And sometimes you have to do them in vain in order to do them again and do them a third time before they actually take root and it becomes a thing. So I want to get your take on this and everything else that we've talked about tonight. We've talked about the lack of science, technology, engineering, and math education that's not happening on our college campuses because students are way more focused on being activists. We've talked about this horrific rape in New York and subsequent rapes that have occurred, even one by an illegal alien of an 11-year-old girl. And a number of other topics that we've, touched upon, not the least of which was a great conversation with the gentleman who, Daryl Davis, who befriended members of the KKK and got them to renounce the KKK and hand in their robes and their hoods. And I thought that was really remarkable. So lots on the table, plenty of topics that you guys can bring to the table as well. The phone number, 833-482-5337. Let's kick this thing off here with, let me see, who was online first. Let's go to Danny in Alamogordo, New Mexico, KINN. Go right ahead.
Well, hey, Mr. Rich Valdez with an S. I have to tell you, I got tickled today because I was talking to a client on the phone, and he was listening to your podcast. I caught the bumper music.
How cool.
I'm like, hey, are you listening to Rich Valdez? He said, yes, Mr. Rich Valdez with an S. I said, oh, yes. And we had ourselves a little Dr. Seuss moment there.
That's funny, Dr. Seuss moment. Well, I appreciate hearing that, Danny. What do you think about this SAVE Act now, where Congress is saying that you're going to have to prove your citizenship in order to vote?
Well, okay. I have always been a big proponent of you need to prove your citizenship to vote. I showed them my driver's license when I go to vote, and they say, oh, well, we don't need that. I'm in New Mexico.
Yeah, a lot of places don't need it, and I think it's a good step. And honestly, we're going to have to go a step further. Like I think we might have to get to passports eventually, because the way some states are going, like Pennsylvania, where they're allowing you to be registered to vote by way of your driver's license, which is pretty commonplace in a lot of states. The problem is some states are saying, well, we need to be able to give driver's licenses to those that are working in our state, and just because they're not citizens doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to drive. And if somebody can get a specialized type of license just to drive, despite not being a citizen, this is where I think we can open the door to backdoor schemes and scams and problems. So I'm with you, and I appreciate that you give your license when you go vote, and I think we need to get in the habit of doing that all across the country. Danny in Alamogordo, New Mexico, which, as far as I know, means fat soul, which is pretty cool. I'm a fat soul. KINN. Danny, thanks for the call. Kudos to you and your client that was listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Godspeed, my friend. And we're going to continue with the rest of your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Valdez. You have one of the greatest shows that radio's ever had.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So in other words, keeping it as is with Roe versus Wade having been overturned and leaving it up to the states to determine if and when a woman can have an abortion?
No, I wouldn't leave it to the states.
You wouldn't, right.
No, I would.
You would say completely, it's up to the woman.
My belief is we should leave it to the woman. We shouldn't have government involved.
Even if it's full term?
Even if it's full term.
That's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I think he's gotten himself in a world of hurt, at least with conservatives that don't appreciate that position of abortion up to the 9th month. That's a little crazy, right? For a lot of people. Even I know people who are pro-choice and think that's crazy. I happen to live in a state. I live in New Jersey, and in New Jersey, you can get an abortion into the 9th month. I know a lot of people go, no way, that's not possible. Yeah, no, it's very possible, and it's part of our statute. So, RFK, I don't know. I don't think the vaccine crowd that was starting to like you from my side of the aisle, I don't think they're going to like you much longer after making that statement, that even if it's full term. Maybe some of them will. I mean, you get some of those folks that are like, hey, whatever. But, you know, this is why we do what we do, right? This is why we have politics. People have politics. People have worldviews. They base them on many different things. Some of us base it on our faith. Some of it base it on, other things we've thought through that are our uniquely held beliefs for whatever reason. And there's agreement. There's disagreement. There's synergy. There's opposition. There's all sorts of things that come across when you have different positions. But this is one that I can tell you, I don't think many people, I really don't. I don't think there's a huge movement of people that are like, absolutely full-term, late-term abortion. I don't even think that group is big. You know, even in Roe, they talked about first trimester and whatnot. So I don't know. I just got to tell you, I don't think that was wise politically. I don't see the advantage of it, but maybe I'm wrong, and I'd love your thoughts on that and everything else that we've talked about tonight. Let's hit the phones. We've got calls from Idaho, Ohio, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Manila, Philippines, and Florida. Let me see. Where do we go from here? We're going to go to our buddy Gil in Manila, Philippines, listening online, richvaldez.com. Gil, how are you, my friend?
Yes, good evening. I've been, I have votive candles and a crucifix in the room because I listen to your show religiously. So I just wanted you to know that. I just wanted
Thank
you to know that.
God bless you, Gil. That was very good.
Thank you. Okay, but two things. First of all, you heard about the Boy Scouts. They are now scouting America.
What a travesty. We heard about it yesterday. I think it's crazy. Literally, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts are two things, right? I was saying my brothers were Boy Scouts. I was a Cub Scout for about 5 minutes. My daughters were Girl Scouts. And to think that we're now just going to call it Scouting America to continue to contribute to the erasure of gender and sex as we know it is crazy for an institution like the Boy Scouts.
Well, if I can make a comment. Growing up, I was involved in scouting. I was raised Catholic, and I was in a Catholic school. And I never was bothered by any pedophiles. I guess that's the advantage of being born a very ugly kid like I was. So the pedophiles weren't interested. But anyhow, I remember our Boy Scout oath. Do you remember this? On my honor, I'll do my best to help the Girl Scouts get undressed. I'm on a roll tonight. But,
I'm pretending I didn't hear that one, so the censors won't get me. Oh, boy, Gil. Now, before we go anywhere else, Gil, I want to ask you, what do you think about this SAVE Act where they're requiring proof of citizenship in order to vote?
Well, I was involved in the 2010 census and in Texas, and they gave me special assignments because of my Spanish ability, and I was out on remote ranches and these different places counting people who were in the country illegally. And that was my job, because we were able to get 2 extra congressional seats for Texas, because anyone in the country is counted in the census, no matter of their status as being here legally or not. And that was my job. I had to go out. I was very lucky. I got an awful lot of overtime, and I made a lot of money in the census because of my Spanish ability. And
outstanding.
Also, I was good with dogs, because some of the census takers would go places and people would have kind of nasty dogs in the yard. You know, they felt threatened, and I was the one who could. If you feed dogs store-bought bologna, I don't know why, but they love bologna. If you give them bologna, they become your friend.
Who doesn't love bologna, Gil? I love a good slice of bologna. Anyway, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for your jokes and for your call and for your listenership. You're a real patriot, Gil. You're a real trooper. Thank you, sir. Godspeed to you. Hope to talk to you again really soon. Folks, the music means we got to take a pause. We're coming right back. The rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue our conversation with you all across America. And earlier, I had discussed this rape in New York, and I usually don't get into that stuff at length, but it really bothered me, I think, only because I saw this video, and I was really shocked. I'm going to say a little traumatized after watching it. It's really shocking to watch this. And every now and again, I get censored on Instagram, and they'll tell me, we're censoring you because of whatever, we think this is this, and I disagree with them. But this one, they said, we're putting a cover on this because this might be too sensitive for people to watch. And that one I actually agreed with. It was on my Instagram story. If you want to take a look, feel free. But it's of this woman getting lassoed around the neck by a predator, and then he knocks her out, and then he rapes her. And then shortly after that, there's another report, which you're about to hear, of an 11-year-old that gets raped by an alleged illegal alien. Listen to this.
It was a terrifying day for that Palm Beach County family. According to the sheriff's office, the man who sexually assaulted that 11-year-old girl was actually living in the same apartment complex of her 20-year-old undocumented immigrant from Guatemala. His name is Marvin Perez Lopez. He's allegedly accused of snatching the girl from just outside of her home, forcing her into his van, where he began sexually assaulting her. Now, according to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, this all went down. They say her mother spotted them inside the van and then began banging on the van door and shouting. Lopez then jumped out and ran away. He was arrested for multiple charges, including kidnapping, sexually assaulting a minor, and resisting an officer.
Now, let me tell you, this is just out of hand. The whole thing is out of hand. Really, really is. I don't even know how to handle this stuff anymore. Where to go, what to say. It's got to stop. I'm going to do everything I can do, whatever I can do, because honestly, this has to stop. It just has to stop. These people have to. First of all, I don't understand why there seems to be a correlation between people coming from another country and wanting to rape small children. I don't even understand that to begin with. Is it commonplace in other countries to rape small children? I've been Hispanic my whole life, and I've never known that this was a thing, right? So all I can think is that people that are sick, just like people here in the U.S. that are sick, that like little kids, are being released by other countries because they're like, let's get rid of our trash and send it to the U.S. And that's exactly what's happening. What Trump said would happen, right? Bad hombres. And they're here now. And they're after 11-year-old girls. And it's the responsibility of every man in this country to make sure that doesn't happen, right? There's a reason God made us men, right? There's a reason we can carry hundreds of pounds and we can build muscle, and we have to be able to protect those that are vulnerable, like 11-year-olds that are the target of these types of rapists. How we do it, I'm not sure yet. Keep a more vigilant eye. Keep your family and friends, your women and your family closer to you. But I don't know. I don't like this at all. Not one bit. Anyway, let's go to the phones on this. Let's go to Tampa, Florida. Eduardo's on the line, listening to richvaldez.com. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich, I thought I'd bring this up. I think this is very important here. Over there on the West Coast, BLM group is suing Tides Foundation. It's being led by Melina Abdullah. And I think this is something, forget the lawsuit that BLM is filing against this Tides group, which is getting money from Soros. And BLM is looking for this $33 million that they put in there because they're not tax exempt. But Christopher Wray's department needs to look at this lady's, Melina Abdullah. She's the one leading these college protests, and see what kind of connections he has overseas, if you can dig up anything as far as terrorism connected. So that would be interesting to find out about this Melina Abdullah.
Yeah. Now, I don't know anything about this, but what from what you know, what is the reason that the BLM group is suing the Tides Foundation? Because that's typically up their alley, right? They're very similar. It's a very left-wing organization.
Yeah, they put $33 million in the account of this Tides because the BLM group doesn't have the tax exempt, the 501. So they put money in there, and now they want the money back, and they don't want to give it back. So they're suing them for that.
Oh, because of the fraud that they had kind of gotten caught out there with.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
yeah. So now they're deciding to fund these college protests.
Right. Yeah. And Melina's the group leader of this Tides Foundation.
Wow. Well, I'll keep an eye on that to find out, where it goes from there. It's an interesting story because I remember when this split happened. Now that I'm looking at one of the stories here, and it's interesting because they even the Tides Foundation felt like these people at BLM are blowing this money, so we don't want to do it anymore with the donation processes. Anyway, moving on to what I was talking about. What are your thoughts on all of this sexual assault that's going on?
Well, as I called not just your program, but other programs during the day, there should have been a moratorium from the beginning. I mean, we had a worldwide pandemic, and now we're getting these diseases from these illegals. And I just saw another caravan coming in through Oaxaca, Mexico. So this is pretty ridiculous, and this is going to keep on going. I mean, Denver, did you see the list of demands that Denver wants for the illegals over there in Denver? It's pretty ridiculous.
I haven't seen it. What was happening in Denver?
Well, they want proper accommodations, sanitary accommodations over there in Denver for the illegals over there. So
are they giving them dirty ones?
Over there, Johnson. Yeah. So they're begging the Mayor Johnson over there in Denver to kind of reconsider how their illegals are being treated over there.
Yeah, well, it's one thing to consider treatment. I mean, I also would think that we don't want to give them something dirty, but I do know I've seen one woman in court or like in some sort of public hearing where she was saying, the New York City should be ashamed of themselves. The way they're treating us is, subpar, substandard. And the thing she was saying, the food we get is no good. And I'm thinking, they're giving you food. I mean, if they're giving you food, I think they're kind of, checking the box. It's up to you to have better food. And she was just like, I don't like, it came across as if she was complaining like she didn't like the thread count on the sheets. And I think that's just, it's laughable, but it's where we have landed in today's world. Eduardo, thank you for your call, brother. Big shout out to everybody listening in Tampa, Florida. Let's continue. Let's go to Andrew's calling from Miami, Florida, listening on WWTK. Where's WWTK?
That's the Sebring station. I still listen to that station there. By the way, they got you
because you're from Sebring and you moved to Miami. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm back home for a little bit, but I'm getting my behind out of here as soon as possible to get back up that side of the world. Because just every time you talk about this thing with the rapists and this, that, and the other, if you look, you will see that a lot of the new stuff that's happening is from the Central Americans. And my man, I'm telling you something. If you've ever been to jail in Miami, you'll see it for yourself.
I have not.
Well,
what are you talking about?
You will definitely see the whole lecherous mentality that a lot of Central American guys have. It's almost some of the Middle Easterns who have a philosophy. And I won't call out which one they are, but their philosophy is, well, women are for babies and boys are for fun. Okay? I've been locked up a few times. Wow. And the way these guys operate and look at folks and this, that, and the other, trust me, my friend, I've said it for a long time. Those cats from that part of the world, there's something different about them. Wow. They just have that mentality. So I don't know, maybe it's something in the water down there. But here's the thing. The people who are pulling the buttons or pushing the buttons, they know this. It's a psychological warfare going on in America right now. The whole transgender thing and blah, blah, it's all screwing with everybody's mind, right? They know this. So they specifically give these guys a clear pass through because they know what they're going to do. I have a cousin, who not like a couple of years ago got kidnapped and killed, and the guy killed himself. He was a Central American, so I'm not being prejudiced or anything. I'm from Jamaica. I'm an immigrant myself, but I'm telling you, I told you once already, I thwarted some old Central American dude from nabbing two little girls, it was hairy. And here's the thing. Now we have millions of people coming in. Of course, they're not all like that, but there's a good number of them that are. And
right, sneak in with them. Sure.
My man.
Yeah, and I don't put it past any government from saying, hey, look, our prisons for the criminally insane, our prisons where we hold sex offenders, nobody wants those people. I get that. And if you have a chance to unload them somewhere else, just like the Cubans did in the Mariel boat lift, and I know a bunch of people that came on that boat, and they told me these people were the worst of the worst. They emptied out prisons to fill that boat. And this is coming from people that were on that boat. So, that's just a factual part of history, Andrew.
Absolutely. I was here for that whole Marielito thing. They weren't all bad, but trust me, that really put a damper on our town here in Miami was during that time. I was here for that whole thing, and
the shootings in the streets and all that.
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing, though. A lot of them are upstanding people, and a lot of them are just regular Americans now, probably Republicans. Most Cubans are anyhow. Yeah. And the ones who were on to the left and, crazy, life has a way of erasing them anyhow. So you don't really see them hanging around anymore or anything like that.
Life's tough on those Miami streets, right, Andrew? Thanks for the call, my man. I appreciate it. Big up to you and everybody listening on WWTK out in Sebring and in Miami. Thanks for the call, brother. Taking a quick pause right here. Coming right back. The rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
All right, it is part one of the speed round. We're going to go to Brett in La Crosse, Wisconsin, WIZM. Brett, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Well, I was just getting ready to go to bed, and I heard you about the situation that's upsetting and it's terrible. I was going to give you some advice I learned from reading my Bible. In Ecclesiastes, Solomon says, do not delay in giving out justice, because if you do, it sends a message that it's okay for that. Then also, I was telling your friend that in Deuteronomy chapter 21, 18 through 21, it's called the rebellious son. If our sons are drunkard and proliferator, and you don't want to listen to mom and dad take them to the elders of the town. You don't listen to the elders, then the men of the town grab a hold of them and take them outside the city limits or town and stone them, and you purge evil, then you ain't got them problems.
Yeah, listen, I think I'm almost there with you, especially on the first part, because something has to be done, and it's, that the first part is really it's a legal axiom that's still alive and well today, of justice delayed being justice denied, and I believe that to be true, and I also believe that it's incumbent upon all of us to do the right thing. And so, yeah, if you take them to the elders, great. And if they don't do it, then, take them to the men. Sure, I'm down with that, too. I really am. And I don't want somebody to call me and say, oh, that Valdez calling for vigilante justice. I'm not. I'm calling for people to be vigilant, for people to keep their eyes open and to do the right thing. When I was a kid, and even, I don't know, when I was a teenager even, when I was a young adult and when my kids were little, it was not weird for parents to see some other people's kid and be like, hey, you all right? Are you okay? Today, it's almost weird to talk to some other people's kids. It's like, why are you talking to my kid? What are you, a weirdo? And I think that has to end. We have to go back to that time in life where you look out for one another's kids, because the threat is just too big. Brett in La Crosse, Wisconsin, thanks for your Bible lesson there. That was really, really good and really, really quick. Excellent for the speed round. Let's see, where do we go here? We go to Paul, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ. Go right ahead.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Yeah, well, with that rape, I didn't see much about that today because I had a busy, long day. So I didn't see much about that. But, I think you're probably going to look at more of that happening, and from what I've heard from a couple of your previous callers about, some of these illegal aliens coming in, I do see a problem arising here. But what I wanted to talk about was your first guest there. That was very riveting. When he's talking about the Ku Klux Klan, I really liked that. I couldn't hardly take my earphones off because I listened to you through earphones. So I'd like to see him come back. And then the one last thing. Oh yeah, it was really good. But that girl that was whining around about, now I can't make, my walk for my commencement and all that for college. Well, you know what, girl?
What a clown.
You marched in the wrong parade.
Right. She rained on her own parade.
Right. She rained on her own parade. You got that just right. You can't be like that. This is America. I don't even think half these kids know what they're talking about. And then they get the repercussions of what happens when you do something like that. I say amen to these people that said, no, you can't do that and then march on the college campus and graduate. I'm glad she gets all of her credits and gets what she's due. But, and I don't know if there'd be a whole lot of parents that agrees with what these kids are doing.
Paul, I think you're right. And another thing to note is that I don't even know if this is the college being punitive towards them, like, oh, because you did this, you're not graduating. It's more so they felt that there was a safety concern because Jewish students were getting attacked, and they just said, we're not going to have graduation because it's unsafe here. Because she made it unsafe, her and her friends chanting from the river to the sea. So she got exactly she reaped what she sowed. Paul in Zanesville, WHIZ, shout out to you guys. Have a great weekend. Have a great week to come as well. Hopefully you'll call back in next week. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of the speed round. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, folks, it's Rich Valdez. We're taking your calls on all the hot topics of the evening as we wrap up this program this week of America at Night. I want to go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA, and check in with Jim. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. Let's make a quick, short, safe act. It's nice in theory, but they'll never pass it. And in Pennsylvania, where I live, it's so corrupt. I call him Josh the Snake Shapiro, and before it was Tom Wolf, both Democrats. Yeah. I went to vote. Actually, I'll tell you what happened to me. It was funny. I went to get my driver's license renewed. This was like 4 years ago. Okay, and a young guy at the DV Department of, he said, "You want to register to vote?" And I was already registered, but I said, "Yeah." I was just playing his name. He said, "Okay, sign here." I go, "Wait a minute. How do you know I'm not a citizen?" He goes, "Well, I would ask you that next." This is how corrupt it is. And in this state of Pennsylvania, they don't count the votes until after the election night ends. And where do you think they counted them? Last year they counted them in Philadelphia at the convention center. Yeah, Pennsylvania's stole already. Our state is so corrupt.
It's tough. Jim, I got to pause you right there because I got one more call to get to before we wrap up for the night. Thank you so much for your call. Shout out to KDKA. Let's go to our buddy Paulie's in Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Paul, go right ahead quickly.
Yeah, Rich, you know about radios and I don't, but I thought I had a grandiose idea that could be possible, and that would be to have Trump transmit and talk to his constituents and say what he needs to say while he's being traveled through the boroughs down in between the buildings in there. And I thought that...
Well, I'll tell you this, Paul. I think that it's an excellent idea because why not, right? Trump already dominates so much of the media whenever he says anything. He's out there getting all the coverage. So it makes sense that he eventually open up some sort of big media company. I hope he does. I think it would be a good thing. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I am Rich Valdez.